entrepreneurial mindset, not set in stone. Do you have to be an entrepreneur in order to be entrepreneurial? I hear no. Okay, we can go with that. So who or what is an entrepreneur anyway? Well, if we go back to the origins of the word, it's a French word, and it means someone who undertakes to do some activity or endeavor. And back in around 1828, the word came into common use as someone who managed theatrical productions. And around the 1850s, it became known as someone who managed business ventures. But I would dare say, running a business is still very much like running a theatrical production, with its inherent risks and drama. Mindset. But before going further into that, let me ask you one more question about an entrepreneur. Some people say entrepreneurs are born. Some people say they can be taught. But I think being an entrepreneur is a decision. It's a decision you make to undertake a responsibility to fulfill an endeavor with the hope of a favorable outcome, which we call success. So it's a responsibility that you decide to take on. Now that takes us to the concept of mindset. What's a mindset? It's a collection of thoughts or beliefs. It's actually a fixed set of beliefs based on your personal experiences. But having an entrepreneurial mindset means that we have to be flexible, a bit malleable. So how does that sync with a mindset that could be fixed? So the question is, what is exactly being fixed? What are you fixing your mind on? Well, it's about being fixed on the long term, but flexible in the short term. You have a goal, you have an objective, but you may change your methodology to get there. So you're fixed about your goal, but flexible about your methods. So it actually does work together. But it is most essential to have the right mindset from the onset to set yourself up for success. The right mindset from the onset. And therefore, the path to entrepreneurship starts with a mindset. How you think. And why is that so important? Because your mindset is how you process information. And how you process information results in how you make decisions. And of course, we know that our decisions shape our lives, they shape our destiny, and hence, it's very important the decisions that we make and the tools that we have to make them. So how do we go about cultivating and nurturing this mindset? Well, the goal of today's talk is just that, to share with you perspectives and insights that will give you an understanding of different tools necessary to shape the mindset, with the goal of enhancing your ability to make more effective decisions or better decisions for yourself. That's the goal today. So my journey, and it's a journey, it's a lifelong journey of cultivation. It's not a one-time event. You come here today and it's done. No, we're just sowing seeds. So for me, the seeds of entrepreneurship were sown on a farm in Jamaica when I was a little girl. That's me and my sister, Helena. We grew up on a farm, and we didn't know what entrepreneurship was. We didn't know the word. We didn't know what an entrepreneur was. But we were observing commerce. We were observing the activity of entrepreneurship. We learned the discipline of setting a goal that you sow and then you reap. And then you wait for the growth cycle to take effect before you can harvest. We learned that. We didn't know what it was called. But fast forward several decades into the future, specifically to 1999, when I was in my second year of business school at Columbia Business School in New York. And I took a class called Managing New Ventures. And we had to write a business plan for that class and thinking of ideas of what to write. And so during my time at business school, we all had to have laptops. Again, this is the late 90s. Laptops are becoming popular. And we all had the same boring laptop bag. Do you remember those people? Remember the time when you didn't have a choice of laptop bags? Well, I was most dismayed. I did not like mine. So my sister, Helena, same sister, she was a graduate of FIT, not the FIT here in Florida, but the one up in New York, Fashion Institute of Technology. And I asked her to design and make a bag for me, which she did. And it started to get a lot of attention. People started to ask me, where did you get that bag? And a lot of interest. So I said, okay, that's going to be the topic of my business plan. Designing stylish laptop bags for women. Well, after a lot of bootstrapping and trial and error and all of that, that bag went on to become the first laptop bag sold at the Museum of Modern Art design store in New York. MoMA Design. Thank you. And from there, it gave us a boost. You know, people think that we have something to offer, so that was great. From there, we got press coverage. We were featured in Vogue, InStyle, Business Week, Forbes, Fast Company, and on and on. We even got featured in some movies. And one of the movies won an Oscar. But if you get a chance this weekend, check out The Nanny Diaries, where Scarlett Johansson, in a scene, she's pulling a striped wheel bag. That's one of our Kusori cases, and that's the name of our business, Kusori. So it was featured in that movie. So sales were growing, and we're doing well. Each year, sales were doubling. So, that's very good. You kind of start to take it for granted. By 2007, we were still moving along at a nice pace, but I started to notice there was a shift. There was a bit of deceleration in the momentum of the sales. It wasn't just this automatic doubling every year. So I noticed that. So what do you think I did when I noticed something was happening? What do you think I did? Nothing. I didn't do anything. I'm like, that will pass. I had a bit of a warped mindset. Or maybe it's considered normal. I don't know. So when you notice something is happening, you really should start to pay attention. So that brings me to my first mindset or component of the building of cultivating the entrepreneurial mindset. One of the first mindsets to have is a mindset of humility. And I'm going to share 3 with you. The first is having a mindset of humility. Now, that may not be a word that we most commonly associate with entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship, being humble, if you will. We think of entrepreneurs as being confident and bold and assertive and aggressive and outgoing and so forth, but not so much humble. That's not what comes to mind anyway. But according to C.S. Lewis, he said that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Not being so caught up in ourselves. I mean, humility really is open-mindedness, being willing to learn something new and to improve and to say, I actually could improve in this area. And it's also being willing to admit error. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Learn from it. And not allow pride to prevent that. Because pride prevents progress. Pride prevents progress. And it's the opposite of humility. Also, pride is very expensive. We can't afford a line item on the expense report for pride. You'll go broke. It's just too expensive. And I learned that lesson the hard way. Because now 2008 is upon us. And we all can remember what happened in 2008, circa 2008, 10 years ago. Hard to believe. Where everything kind of imploded, and that had a very negative impact on our business. So at that time, it was like, okay, we have to make some decisions. And I was hanging on. I needed to, when your sales are here and your expenses are here, what's the difference called? A profit, and that's where you want to keep it. But if you notice your sales are coming down, what should you do with the expenses? Bring them down too, to try to maintain that margin, or at least keep above the expense. But if your sales are coming down, your expenses are here, and they go below, now we have a what? We have a loss, and that's not where we want to be. So I got some advice at that time. I did go out and get some help. I asked an advisor, what do you think I should do? And I received the best and worst advice all at the same time. I was told, focus on sales, just grow your sales, just put everything into sales, grow those sales. And I did that. But what about those expenses? When you're hemorrhaging cash, what do? You apply the tourniquet, then you get the transfusion, not the other way around. So it was the worst advice because it was in the wrong order. It was the best advice because eventually you want to focus on those sales, but first stop the staunch. You have a leaky bucket and you're going to keep pouring water into it, it's going to continue to leak. Fix the bucket. But I was taught, never give up. Never give up. Don't quit. Stay the course. But the question is, what are you giving up? What are you giving up? So around that time, my mother, she told me, Emily, it's time to leave this warehouse, move your business back home. How do you think I responded to that suggestion? I burst into tears. I said, no, we're in MoMA. We're in the movies. We're in all this hard work, all the trade shows, all the up and down. How can we just throw it away, give it up? But she wasn't telling me to give up the business. She was saying give up the warehouse. There's a difference. And I was caught up in the mindset trap of vanity, in love with my pallet jack, in love with my IKEA furniture, which I still am, and the trappings of a business. Not just because you have a warehouse and an office and a desk means you're in business. Don't mistake the two. I got into MoMA from my bedroom at home in New Jersey. That's where we started our business in New Jersey. All that stuff happened from my house. So it wasn't the building that validated me, and I got caught up thinking that the building was my validation of being in business because of pride, thinking of what other people would think, or maybe what I thought, my own pride. So, knowing when to give up short-term tactics, but not your long-term goal. Same thing here. So you got to know when to let it go. And what are you letting go? Excess weight. If you're sinking, you have to cast off. Lighten the load so you can rise. That's fine. And that's a part of the mindset. We're so afraid to fail that we lose track of what we really should be focusing on. So that brings us to the second mindset we need to cultivate and develop. And that's the mindset of diligence, being diligent. Seest thou a man or a woman diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before mean men. Proverbs 22, verse 29. Diligence, the careful application of effort towards that which has been undertaken. The assiduous, industrious application, careful attention to details. Have you heard the expression, the devil is in the details, by chance? Well, if the devil is in the details, where do you think you need to be? You have to be on top of the details of your business. You can't just pass it off to someone else. You have to pay attention because that's a part of the responsibility that you undertook in starting the business in the first place. And it can take its toll sometimes. It gets a little overbearing, but that's a part of the deal, a part of the package. So in 2009, after 10 years of diligently knocking on the door, sending emails, sending voicemails, attending trade shows, sending FedEx packages to Steve Jobs, we finally got onto Apple.com. 10 years it took. We thought that Apple was our dream client because if you have a stylish laptop, you need a stylish laptop case. It just stands to reason. So we finally got on there, and our laptop bag became one of the top-selling bags for women on their website. And many times people think, when you get it, you do business with some kind of big company, it just happened overnight. Or whoever you did business. Every customer we ever got was a lot of hard work. Hard work. It's not overnight. During that time, and we had our experiences, and so that happened right in the height of the problem in the economy, as I was telling you, in 2008. But you might be getting sales, the expenses aren't under control, it doesn't matter. And I also got some advice from someone who had reviewed our financial statements, a financial advisor. And he said, if you don't get your debt under control, you'll be in business only about 3 more years. You know what I said to him, or didn't say to him? I didn't ask him, what should I do? Because why? I already had in my mindset that all I needed to do was sell more. I needed to deal with the expenses. Well, throughout this course of time, my mother again, who's always encouraging us, she said, Emily, you need to write a book. She said, all these things you're going through, you need to write a book. You need to share these experiences with people. And I kind of I don't have time for a book. I don't have time for that. But I did start writing notes. And after 5 years, which would be 5 years starting 2017 back, I finally did write my book. And it's called The Little Girl's Guide to Entrepreneurship, What I Know Now That I Sure Wish I Knew Then. And I'm happy to say, through diligently applying myself to that, but there were about 2 years of total procrastination. So diligence can go in spurts. Now, our third mindset, the mindset of resilience, the ability to bounce back after a crisis or a setback, or when things go wrong. And generally, the idea is being able to bounce back quickly, a certain amount of time frame for that resilience to take place. But I don't put much emphasis on the time frame. It's just the fact that you can bounce back, period. And how your elasticity, your flexibility. How rigid are you? If you're rigid, you can't really bend. There's recently an earthquake that was in Venezuela this past week, and it affected the Eastern Caribbean. And one of the reports said that these countries need to prepare to become more resilient so that they can better be prepared in the event of such crises. And I would say the same thing to you as entrepreneurs or people who are thinking of becoming entrepreneurs or whatever your capacity is, your entrepreneurial mindset. Resilience. Expect things to go wrong. Expect setbacks. It's kind of like if you're going down the road and you see a detour, see the detour sign. What do? You just sit there and look at it? Or you go back home and sit in your garage? How do you handle a detour sign? We go around it. We go another way. So there's always another way. There's always a solution. And that's one of the fundamental cornerstones of an entrepreneurial mindset. There's always a solution. Just because you may not know it or don't have it at the time doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if we have that resilience and that preparation, that there will be loss. I have a Facebook group. It's called the Entrepreneurial Mindset with Emily McHugh. And a lady in that group, she wrote a question. She said, how do I build a business after a failure? Well, I have you know that failure is temporary, not permanent unless you make it so. And I recently read an article that said, failure is only helpful feedback. So that's a good one. I like that one. Because that is all it is. We put failure up on a pedestal. Like, I'm afraid to make any mistake. You know what? You're going to make some mistakes. They say failure is not an option. Oh, yes, it is. And it will probably have to happen regularly. Don't be afraid of the failure. Focus on your success. Focus on your long-term goal. You'll have short-term hiccups, okay, but there's a long-term thing. So coming back after a loss. So I would say anything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong in my business. And people talk about work-life balance, and for me, it's just life. It's not about work, it's not about this, it's life. Life is work and work is life. It's all one thing. And we learn to work through it. But it's one thing to have business loss and things go wrong in your business. But it's another thing when at the same time, things go wrong in your personal life. And I experienced that. And you heard me mention throughout the course of this talk about the influence of my mother, how she encouraged us to do everything. Earlier this year in January, my mother and I were having breakfast together. And she said to me, Emily, just trust God. Whatever you do, trust God. Don't worry about anything. I was telling her about some concern I had, and she said, don't even worry about that. Just trust God. Then a little bit after that, she complained about aches in her joints all over her body. So I had some ointment, and I rubbed on it, and thought maybe that would help her. 2 hours later, I went to see my mom. She was gone. She suddenly passed away, just like that. And when that happens, when we experience loss, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who may have experienced this, your world stops. You don't care about your business. You don't care about your marketing plan. You don't care about anything. You just feel like, why bother? There's nothing left to motivate me. So I know for myself and my sister, we're still working through this. It's been 8 months, but it's been a struggle. Initially, I think for several months, I was not functional. So what do? You take it one step at a time, one day at a time, because it's a process. But what helped me overcome is helping me to overcome. As I said, it's still a work in progress. So 3 things. First, remembering her words to me that very morning, trust God. Oh, before I continue with that, let me just make an interjection as a public service announcement. If a woman ever complains to you that she has aches in her joints all over her body, it's most likely she's having a heart attack. I did not know that. Get immediate medical attention. Or if they have severe indigestion, it could be a symptom of a heart attack, and it's different for women than men. Had no idea. Anyway, so what's helping us get through? 3 things. 1, trust God. Trust God. That's what I'm doing, because it's by His grace that I'm here before you today. I can tell you that right now. And that we even had the business and all the things we've gone through and working through. Number 2, remember that you're here to fulfill a purpose. You're here for a reason. And whether you know it or not, you are. So if you've decided to undertake a certain mission, you're here, you want to be faithful to that which you decided to undertake. You have a purpose to fulfill, so that long-term purpose should help propel you. It's more than just you, and more than just your emotions. It's other people that may need to benefit or whatever it may be. And then, thirdly, I'm totally forgetting about my slides. Oh, there, the arrow. I'll get to her in a second. Actually, I might have to get back. Okay, whatever. Anyway, thirdly, success is your only option. As I said, failure, forget that. Success is your only option. That's it. Otherwise, what's the point? And the resilience of a bow and arrow. I don't know how many of you pull bows and arrow, but you have to use a certain amount of strength to pull that bow back or pull the arrow back. And the distance, they call it the draw length that you pull it back, might be about 30 inches. But depending on all the dynamics of the bow and the weight of the arrow and everything, it could be propelled 100 times farther. So sometimes the strain of being pulled back emotionally can take its toll. But imagine where you could go if you don't give up, if you realize that's par for the course. Victory. To survive. It's a mentality, it's a mindset. It is a mindset, not a failure mindset. It's a success mindset that I am going to cross that finish line, and not only of my entrepreneurial journey, but not only am I going to cross it, I'm going to cross it as a clear winner. Not by a nose, but by a serious margin. And not only are you going to cross the finish line, people, but you're going to smile doing it. That's right. And actually, smile before you cross it. So, I'm going to leave you where I started. The path to entrepreneurship starts and ends with a mindset. And what do we need to optimize those decisions and to maintain that mindset? Humility. What was the second one? Diligence. Third, resilience. Humility, diligence, resilience. Knowing that, the entrepreneurial mindset is not set in stone. Thank you.